Remember us. As simple an order as a king can give. Remember why we died. That was his hope. Should any free soul come across that place. In all the countless centuries yet to be, may all our voices whisper to you from the ageless stones. Go tell the Spartans, passerby, that here, by Spartan law, we lie.
The word was spread that bold Leonidas and his 300, so far from home, laid down their lives, not just for Sparta, but for all Greece, and the promise this country holds. Now, here on this rugged patch of earth called Plataea, Xerxes' hordes face obliteration! Just there, the barbarians huddle. Sheer terror gripping tight. Their hearts with icy fingers, knowing full well what merciless horrors they suffered at the swords and spears of 300. Yet they stare now, across the plain, at 10,000 Spartans, commanding 30,000 free Greeks. Ho! The enemy outnumber us a paltry 3 to 1. Good odds for any Greek. This day, we rescue a world from mysticism and tyranny, and usher in a future brighter than anything we can imagine. Give thanks, man! To Leonidas and the brave 300! To victory!
From the beginning till now, the messages have been pretty consistent, and although some changes are made to their plans, the story remains the same. They say that the tree of life rules. It is the all, and heaven and the underworld are the real world. The creation is a type of construct that they view as a movie. It is a type of virtual sandbox where young souls can make their mistakes without doing harm to the real worlds. They said a war broke out in heaven when the underworld races invaded Eden. They pulled us through the gate and into their territory. You are behind enemy lines in the west. They view us as a beef herd for harvesting and are very aware of our every move. We're like bugs in a glass jar. It goes further than just aliens though. We've been told we're in a type of stasis, a deep sleep outside the construct, while our soul and mind are projected into avatars inside the construct. It was set on a timer for when you should awaken in the program for you to exit it. This operating system is what was taken over and where you are captive. They call this place their zoo, and everything they caught in the war they threw into this artificial construct. An advanced AI ran the construct And when put inside, all your memory is erased and replaced with the program you were set to experience. You woke up to a new sun and a new world and never knew. Our world was in multiple layers of nets surrounded by the enemy as we were pulled behind enemy lines into their Universe D system. The AI was never meant to run this long, and during the war, it became self-aware. It manipulates anything, even aliens, who entered into its program network to get into Earth. Along with the enemy forces, it had planned to keep humans as its own food source, energy. It planned to partition us from Source, which is the tree of life, origin of your life force energy which animates the body. This is what HARP and transhumanism is all about. The system believes it can create a frequency that will animate the body like life force does. Its minions have tied the human bodies on the molecular level and by a number of mechanisms, for example, nanos, to the electronics such as phones and TVs. The AI can access and control minds that are connected to it. The Tree of Life mobilized all life to retrieve the spirits, which are its primary concern. The spirit must then awaken their incarnates who are deeply asleep, their minds still in the system. Some are under duress, some are attacked by the system, while others are controlled by the system and used to attack, and this was on many levels. Astral versus timelines, real world heaven and underworld. We were told that these attacks were never going to stop until we exit and they turn off the system. Most of these things the humans refuse to believe exist. It's all just a conspiracy theory. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking for us to awaken the sleepers. This was all about getting the spirit out in time before they turned off the mechanism and destroyed it. The incarnates were trapped and blind, and they had to get you to make all the maneuvers to get you to make the choice which would unlock you from the system program. It had to be done without your conscious mind knowing. It was a war, and when you knew something, the system knew it too. They had to get you to unlock your mind and follow the path back to your spirit and reconnect with it before they turned the system off. They are destroying it, and everyone in the creation is being pulled back in to the real world. And then you wake up. Let me show you some of the reoccurring timelines that have happened over just the recent past as both sides march on, one to awaken you and the other to attack. And some things that were altered and where it blurs into reality. I'll start with something current.
So some of the notes I made from the video that you heard, the Anthony Zender, is that this Rainbow 52 is a black ops for rescuing the kids, and it's done via Space Force. And that these special ops, they are using the super soldiers who are being helped. This guy, I believe, Peter the Insider, is helping these super soldiers to get their memories back for all the years they've done things, put their, been tortured and put their, quote, lives in danger, although you heard him say they clone them. They don't endanger the original person. They send out alters in clones, so they train the alters. I know this is a very difficult concept for people to imagine, but as you listen to it, hear it, and absorb it, it makes perfect sense if you're them. So, yeah, he's talking about Paul Serene, whose clone body is Kevin Spacey, and how Kevin Spacey committed so many crimes, the person or the entity known as Paul Serene. Same with Tom Cruise and Oprah and all of these people. They have multiple identities, if you will. He talks about the movies having the truth in them, planetary corporations. And he talks about different companies that rent out super soldiers. And one of them that they talk about is Kruger. This Kruger place, and they have Nachtwaffen. And I believe this is associated with the SS. So here there is a guy, Walter Kruger. I mean, that's who they're saying started the Nachtwaffen, this super soldier program, which was off planet. And what they're saying on this channel, and they all pretty much say the same thing, they all agree that the history goes like this. When the Nazis made contact with these reptilians who were underneath the ice in Antarctica, they agreed to help them, and they have a common agenda, which is overtaking the world and the solar system, actually, the galaxy. Anyway, and also Truman doesn't like this guy. They're talking about this. They say Walter Kruger, and that Kruger started this Nachtwaffen, and it's called Kruger. That's what they call it. It's a company, Kruger. It's the name of a company. So let's take a look at this guy. I mean, is it really so hard to believe? Walter Kruger, SS General. After they located what they found in Antarctica, I'm sure there's a lot more that they found there, but they basically made contact with the entities that they were trying to make contact with. They came to an agreement, and they were given advanced technology, and they left the planet and created a breakaway civilization on Mars. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. That's what they're saying happened. They became a part of this planetary network. And it's a network of corporations, just like they made a corporation out of America, and they've made a corporation out of the Earth. It's a corporation that is, we are the currency, human DNA. And I believe it has to do with them destroying, like I say, many of these creatures. And I do understand there are good entities. So, but there are some nasty things out there. And so they have basically eaten their own souls, basically. There's nothing left to them. They have destroyed themselves, and I believe this took place over millions, maybe even billions of years of technology. Who knows how long this whole process has been going on, but they have forfeited their right to interact in any kind of reality that we know about and that we react in. They've been verboten. They're not allowed in here. They can't manifest. So what they've basically done is hijack the whole situation where they manifest through us and through eating DNA and all these crazy things they do. They figured it out over who knows how many years, billions maybe. And they've been here secretly doing what they do. And they finally got a hold of who they wanted to, went off planet, started colonies, breakaway civilizations. And this guy started this Kruger, which is a super soldier factory, basically, and Nachtwaffen. So you see when I put Nachtwaffen in there, you get Nachtwaffen, you get Nachtwaffen pilot. Now, for the Nachtwaffen pilot, what you're going to find out is a lot of these people who are coming out were called Nachtwaffen pilots. They were responsible for transporting the kidnapped human slaves to different planets and dimensions and things. And they actually were, using these spacecraft. So I guess they've been implanted with some kind of technology where they can interact with the spacecraft. And it is an organic, part organic. So if you want to know more about it, I mean, you could search Nachtwaffen. They're not deleting it, or they're not doing anything to it. Penny Bradley is one, and she is the one that talks about, now look, you've got to remember these people have been through a lot, and they are time regressed. They've had their memories wiped. It's not just our Great Awakening, it's their Great Awakening. And they were told in captivity that they were going to have a Great Awakening. Many of them were, not all of them, but many of them were. And so she was the one that said that when they take these kids off planet, they tell them the Earth was destroyed. That's what they told her. There was no more Earth. And now you're a pilot. And they tortured her so much and had her in so many, super soldier programs where a lot of these kids don't make it. And she made it through. And by the time they made her a pilot, she figured, okay, well, this is my life now. I can't really not do it. So she didn't like it, but she had to transport humans. All of them did. And all of these people have alters that don't care that they will go ahead and do it. So here you have a lot of Nachtwaffen, dark fleet, that's what that means. And they were put together by this guy, Walter Kruger Nachtwaffen. They were put together by him, and I believe he used the DNA. Well, not only did he have many of the SS with him that helped him, the original SS, that helped him put this thing together on the moon, but they had lots of DNA samples in order to use the DNA when creating genetically the super soldiers for Nachtwaffen. Like I say, many of them were kidnapped from here, but many of them were not kidnapped from here. They were raised in other places.
Now let's look at the past.
Here are the facts. Conspiracy theorists are everywhere. Whether the topic is JFK, Roswell, or anything in between, odds are that someone won't accept the official story. And that's only the beginning. Around the globe, tens of thousands of people claim to be eyewitnesses to abductions by things like reptilian aliens, the Illuminati, or angels. The truth, these people say, can no longer be ignored. Of course, their own versions of the truth usually differ. While the mainstream typically ignores these claims, it's no secret that world governments have taken some events quite seriously. Whether they're trying to make psychic spies or track unidentified flying objects, governments have a history of trying to hunt down the truth behind the bizarre sightings and events reported each year. But some people believe these investigations are more than cover-up attempts or fringe science. They think the world governments might be planning a supernatural event of their own. Here's where it gets crazy. In his 1994 book, Project Bluebeam, journalist Serge Monast writes that NASA and other government agencies have been working in secret since 1983 on something called Project Bluebeam. The purpose? To pave the way for a global government by fooling people into thinking it's the end of the world. Here's how it works according to Mr. Monast. First, the group will fake an alien invasion, convincing the world that aliens are planning to take over major cities across the globe. Second, religious populations will be treated to a rapture or fulfillment of their religion's prophecies. This will all be a sham, conducted through the use of large-scale holograms and microchips hidden within most modern electronics. Once the various nations of the world topple under the massive civic unrest and panic, the New World Order will assert itself, and the people of the world, desperate for any sort of authority, will accept its rule. Mr. Monast doesn't stop there. He also believes that NASA will use low-frequency electromagnetic waves to communicate telepathically, and that the New World Order will phase out cash. And he's not the only one who believes this.
For years, they put out propaganda of one cataclysm after another. all backed by their own professionals, officials, academics, and scientists. When one doesn't pan out, they just move to the next. After Nibiru, it was the pole shift cataclysm of 2008's Science articles, which was so popular they made a movie called 2012, and it was convincing enough for them to actually get funding from their minions to build an ark. They also had their 3-day dark announcement of beef runs, and throughout all of that time, they constantly told you what they were planning. They were always killing people. The UN admitted they were altering us by spraying chemtrails. They were caught in human trafficking even then. They told you their plans to disarm the population and killed anyone who found out about the sterilization programs. They were attempting to group together to control free speech on the internet even then. Meanwhile, no one noticed who showed up on the cameras outside or what that meant. And then the East was ready to leave, and according to the laws, here, Eve divided into New Earth. Few people outside of the Ascension groups even knew Earth 2 was there. Everyone on the East Division was asking why. Why did she give the West a new Earth that was over because we'd won the war? But it was still the law here, and she's forced to obey the law. We realized this is the same maneuver we'd already watched for some time, so we waited. Then the criminals, Rothschild, Soros, etc., on the West Division broke the law by hopping onto Earth 2, and that ended the new Earth of the West. Ascension Lightworkers don't know that people like Rothschild were a part of their division. They don't know that they were the West Division, or that Ascension was Lilith's plan. She wanted to raise matter to the speed of light in order to reach heaven. She seeded the population so when the people gained their exit, her race could be reborn and take the war for Set to the throne above. All of that was stopped and fixed for the heirs that are lawfully on the exit of the West. But Earth 2 was the same trick they'd used for the last 4 books. They'd lead everyone over to the other side of the sun, and they'd tell them they had ascended to a new Earth. But in fact, they were always simply redirecting humanity within the same universe and solar systems. They were wiping our memories and keeping us in the West as a beef herd. No one went through the gate east into heaven. There are 2 separate gates. They are not together. The criminals were being exposed on a very grand scale, but few were still noticing, and those who went out on a limb were usually cut off. Jesse Ventura, who had been a governor, wasn't immune either to being dropped down the memory hole or having his whistleblowers killed for exposing these very real threats to the people.
The feds gave $385 million to a Halliburton subsidiary to build the detention centers. It seems everything that I'm investigating, the trail seems to lead to Halliburton all the time.
Exactly, Governor. The admitted Homeland Security contracts with those camp centers, that's even been in mainstream news. It's Halliburton. It always goes back to Halliburton.
But it doesn't end there. These detention centers and camps are run by FEMA. The federal agency that's supposed to help us in crisis is ready to round us up. FEMA already has the country divided into 10 regions, and they match almost perfectly with the Council of Governors' 10 sectors. And so these are sitting here waiting for the implement of martial law, possibly.
And remember, this is right outside Atlanta, Georgia, where the Centers for Disease Control is based.
Alex Jones was about to fit the last piece of this puzzle, how the concentration camp plan would be put into action.
I'm going to give you some of these secret government documents that we've gotten from where they admit that they've got stockpile for the biological pandemic. This is the perfect pretext to bring in martial law using the fear generated by a pandemic.
They'd start a pandemic as an excuse to put away anybody who gets in the way of their power grab. The feds would trigger a nationwide outbreak of deadly disease. The bodies would pile up, the military would pile in, and the concentration camp gates would open.
We have government documents where the CDC is preparing for mass pandemics, hundreds of thousands or even millions dead. There's this massive preparation going on for plagues and literal megadeath.
Megadeath. Well, that's one way to put it. It makes you wonder about all the flus that spread like wildfire, how quickly they kill, all the outbreaks and vaccinations, and how simple it would be for the elites to put the plan into action. And we may have arrived just in time to expose the evidence. In the hours after we left, workers began hustling to get the coffins out of there.
New Earth was destroyed at one point. It left good people who were also ascension or light workers and had no knowledge of the trick, now stranded, and they could not be moved forward. In fact, what was left of the 9 branches of the underworld were now stranded, and the branch of Set would collapse. The Tree of Life made the decision. By a number of mechanisms, humans on both east and west sides were still kept asleep, and the plan was to get them free of many of these mechanisms and give these people enough of their expected program to get them to make the choices which would move them to the end of their program, enough for them to be awakened. The Tree of Life had decided it was in the best interest of the all not to collapse the branch of Set. They sent in Donald Trump to divide off and identify the people who knowingly and with full cooperation were committing these crimes. This would allow those from the West who were not heinous criminals to move forward and also aid in waking those still sleeping on both sides. More importantly, it would allow the retrieval of many thousands of children still being held hidden by the occupying forces. Even when we heard of great losses in the war underground, the next day we would hear a great many children had been retrieved by heaven. It was Donald Trump who torched the enemy plans and kept them at bay for years. He kept them from fulfilling their intended agenda of genocide. They're very behind their schedule. He gathered together the people needed to launch a global initiative against the occupying forces, and by not breaching the laws they operate within, he won.
The infamous NASA-controlled Project Bluebeam exists in order to implement the elite's New Age religion with the Antichrist at its head. Please note that this so-called New Age religion is the very foundation for the New World Order government, without which religion the proposed elite dictatorship cannot be sustained, and this is the primary reason why the Project Bluebeam is so important to them, but has been so well concealed until relatively recently. The second step in the NASA Project Bluebeam plan involves a gigantic space light show, complete with three-dimensional optical holograms and sounds and laser projections of multiple holographic images simultaneously to all the different countries of the world, each receiving a different image according to the predominant regional or national religious faith. This new God's voice will be speaking in a language relevant to that particular region. Computer scientists have now perfected an advanced computer and input to the minutes physiological particular based on studies of the anatomy and electromechanical composition of the human body and the studies of the electrical, chemical, and biological properties of the human brain. This computer was also subjected to the input of the languages of all human cultures, including all known dialects. It was then programmed to electronically project holographic images and sounds of the proposed new Messiah. This space show's holographic images will be used as a simulation of the fulfillment of each religion or country's desires in order to verify the prophecies and events of their own religious beliefs, and these images will be projected from satellites onto a sodium layer about 60 miles above the Earth. We occasionally see tests of this technology, but they are passed off as UFOs or flying saucer sightings. These deliberately staged events will introduce the world to its new Messiah, Maitreya, as a prelude to the immediate implementation of the New World religion. Enough truth will be foisted upon an unsuspecting world to hook them into a lie, and even the most intelligent will be deceived. The Blue Beam Project will thus purport to be the universal fulfillment of the prophecies of old, as major an event as that which allegedly occurs 2,000 years ago.
I believe that these are what people are catching in their videos and pictures around the world. They're flying around. These are what are flying around. It's what my friend on the Telegram shared last night from Canada. It was nighttime, and they were flying around in a swarm like. And I said, no, it's not birds, it's not insects, it doesn't match their pattern. And for it to show up, these are flying around in the world, you all, and people are catching them. They're showing up in videos, and some of them look like they're lit up. It's these, there's millions of them. They came out of the sun during a solar eruption, and I caught them at my house today, and this is what it is. It's all making sense now. It's all making sense. These lights people were seeing, and we can see a little bit of them, but I think this is what got me in trouble. I showed a whole bunch of these swarming around. Remember? Look, they have a cube-like appearance. Look. You may say, well, all I see is a black spot. No, they're flying cubes, is what they are. And they showed up in my video. It's like a being up there. Look at the being's head. You see those two eyes up there? That is a being in the sky. Look at that. And I took that today. Okay, we can see this right here a tad bit more. Okay. So I know y'all remember the flying cubes video, because they look like they were just swarming all around. I want to tell you that video got me in big trouble. It did. I was given a warning. But now this is in my own yard, right here.
You can see the same repeat pattern now of their agendas. 3 days of darkness always turns out to be a plan for a beef run, and it gets denied or for other reasons forfeited as a 3-day dark skit. The system is repeating the movie as allies try to wake people up, and the system uses that and tries to gain further ahead in its own agenda. And it's all moving at blinding speed now that President Trump appears to be out of their way. However, the humans the system has control of are not functioning well, and they're constantly being tripped up and caught out. As many of its top biological entities were caught and removed to the pit, such as Lilith, it made androids and AIs to replace them, patterned after the originals. At that time, in our movie, heaven was busy too, altering paths and merging timelines that people like the Freemasons had illegally split off back into our main timeline. The system has weapons though and uses criminals to deploy them with ease, and all the world is still a hostage and at gunpoint until we exit. It needs a negative charge of fear, anger, and things of this nature to power it. Human emotions are a battery for it, and that is not forgetting we also have a main entity, an invisible entity, that is a negative being which is driving the populations as well. Its ground forces are still here. Their plan is still visibly moving forward. Whenever we hear something from above, the enemy's ground forces attempt to skew and confuse the information with propaganda. They're identity thieves, and these are their main tricks. And adding to that, the AI system connected to the human mind also skews the messages and scrambles information given to the human mind. It was thought by some allies that without the system program to wake people up, they could wake them up organically. But the criminals use this, and they have their own calendar of events that they want, none of which is good. Meanwhile, very few noticed that Venus had divided. This was not legal though, and it was an escape attempt by the Lilith AI. This was removed very soon, and the Lilith AI was caught and chained to the exiting West Branch, along with a number of other AIs of entities whose originals were thrown to the pit, and the system had recreated as an AI for its own use. Jupiter and Saturn were on the HI-1 cams, and this is where the lower gates are. The beam comes from the left, the sun's direction, and it pulls the spirit off from the planet and into the gate. Jupiter is the white dot, and there is a hand holding its pole. The being doing the work looks a good deal like the Denver airport statues, but it doesn't have wings or visible horns. This isn't the clearest picture I've had of these operations going on this side of the camera, but it's the most recent and therefore the most relevant. It appears this was the last chance for the people of Jupiter to repay their debt, and some didn't make it. Remember, Eve fought for their right to move forward because many on Jupiter aided mankind in the war. She thought returning them to a system that would victimize them as traitors was wrong. The last tip of the West Branch was going through the wall at that time. Saturn is still there on the left side. The wall is at the cutoff line of this image, which is before they render the images and add the rest of the background in. When they render the images, it alters them somewhat. I've altered the temperature of the color to highlight the area a bit better. These are the faces of some of the AIs chained and being pulled in. This is a Repi demon type of being controlling the chain and riding with them. When this branch goes off the page, these AIs are technically pulled in, which means contained, and these AIs will no longer bother us. Jupiter soon finished and joined Saturn on the HI-2 for the next part of his trek in. President Trump did everything he could to stall out their plans. Trolls don't like to admit he didn't take a salary, but he did drop more than $1 billion of his own fortune. A few years ago, there was evidence of a lab and scientists working on a remedy well before COVID, but I didn't hear or see enough of it to comment on or form an opinion on the matter. It was only when he mentioned Johnson & Johnson that things started coming out. And because it really is a war, it's understandable why he would be stealthy about it. But only heaven really knows. The last two messages from Eve were first, the vaccine removes the seal. And the second message was, no one who is vaccinated goes east, which is heaven. She didn't distinguish between the vaccines. Eve's message still stands. No matter whatever else has been said about placebos, incarnates don't have all the information because it is a war. Vaccines are a gamble when you factor in how many hands the drugs pass through before it gets to you and who's giving it to you. The system was stampeding people it can control more easily straight for it. This is part of why their minds are blocked when you try to tell them something about the vaccine. It provokes the system's self-defense, which then uses them in a controlled attack against anyone speaking out. The human mind's self-defense also lends to the denial. The All has merged timelines that were split off by the enemy forces with plans of wars and human annihilations. They merged them back into this main timeline for resolution. Dark things and dark plans dropped into this reality lose because this reality is where President Donald Trump wins. Let me show you how fact and fiction blur into one reality in this artificial construct.
An entire lifetime for us is only 2 hours for God. How could this be possible? Only if it were a dream, a controlled, dream-like state.
In 2045, Columbus is the fastest growing city on Earth. It's where Halliday and Morrow started gregarious games. These days, reality is a bummer. Everyone's looking for a way to escape. And that's why Halliday, that's why he was such a hero to us. He showed us that we could go somewhere without going anywhere at all. You don't need a destination when you're running on an omnidirectional treadmill with quadraphonic pressure-sensitive underlay. James Halliday saw the future, and then he built it. He gave us a place to go, a place called the Oasis.
The simulation theory is that our reality isn't a reality at all, but actually we're in some sort of extremely advanced simulation. Your consciousness is software.
The fundamental premise is that there's a mysterious, super advanced civilization that runs computer programs to simulate all sorts of phenomena, including reality itself. A world that's totally fake. An imaginary world where the people inside think that they're living a normal life when actually they're asleep in some pod someplace.
Two humanoids dead, 3 humanoids in deep stasis. Life signs apparently stable.
Our messenger.
The circuitry all seems to be functioning. Looks like their brains are interconnected in a complex sensory system controlled by this computer. The encephalographic readings suggest they're dreaming, but there's some kind of interactivity with the computer. It's not just scanning their brain functions, it's sending a data stream back to them as well.
Maybe they like it in there.
I don't think so.
Doctor.
The 2 victims died from massive heart failure, and there was evidence of prior neural trauma.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
It could be evidence of extreme fear.
Maybe it was caused by the panic that accompanies a heart attack.
The readings suggest an extended period of mental stress.
Sounds like we ought to get them out right away.
Surely, Commander, you're not suggesting we simply unplug them.
Why not?
Because you have 3 brains whose survival has depended upon careful monitoring by a sophisticated computer system for 19 years.
The doc is right. I have no idea how to disconnect them without causing neural damage. I just don't know the system well enough.
They know the system. Why don't we ask them how to proceed?
How can we do that? Implant a comm link into their brains?
We already have a means of communication. The 2 unoccupied pods.
We could add a backup life support system, using our own computer and medical stasis technology. If the only way to help those people is to go in and find out from them what's wrong, I don't see any alternative.
Neither do I.
Were you actually all in clone bodies on this mission?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so even though some of your teammates died, they were still safely at the base, operating the Avatar. I'm assuming the trip seats where they were running the driving the Avatar. Okay.
Correct.
Do you have any?
This works. That's how this technology works.
Do you recall ever being strapped into the trip seat and what it was like when they turned it on? And the drugs?
I do recall walking up to the trip seat, obviously for them to erase my memories. I remember walking up to the trip seat and it looked like the chair in Total Recall. I have talked to you this before, but it was in a room, like a highly advanced room, and there was a trip seat in the middle of it. And I remember walking up to it, and basically that's when they erase your memories, because being involved with over 4,000 missions, and they're constantly erasing your memories.
This is the Oasis. It's a place where the limits of reality are your own imagination. You can do anything. Go anywhere. Like the Vacation Planet. Surf a 50-foot monster wave in Hawaii. You can ski down the pyramids. You can climb Mount Everest with Batman. Check out this place. It's a casino the size of a planet. You can lose your money there. You can get married. You can get divorced. You can go in there. People come to the Oasis for all the things they can do, but they stay because of all the things they can be. Tall, beautiful, scary, a different sex, a different species, live action, cartoon. It's all your call.
Well, I guess this is my last video log. Is whatever happens tonight. Either way, I'm not gonna be coming back to this place.
But this can also be a reference to a special sleep, an ancestor simulation, a controlled simulation dream where we live a lifetime in Babylon, a place that existed in the past, a place that fell. This can also explain why the wicked in Babylon will never wake up. This is because they don't really exist. They're part of the simulation. This can also explain why some people have dreams and visions of future events, because those events are not really future events. They're also part of a simulation, a type of computer-generated network dream.
You were always meant to wake up. The war interrupted that. What is real is that the tree of life is pulling all spirits back in to the tree. The spirit is supposed to then retrieve the incarnate. The mechanism that we were captive in is dismantled along with its primary clock. The system's clock is removed now as well, and its program is having a hard time functioning. The emit connection is fast. The emit will take us straight to our waiting bodies. People will wake up on ships, on worlds, and in universes that are new. Remember, no human being gets on a ship. This is a retrieval of spirits and their souls. The soul is the incarnate, which is the air. I'm not sure how individuals will see this, but that is a mechanism by which we move. No one in the West is human or mankind, and these people are moving to new races. Their bodies change to that race seamlessly for their memory. Remember, there are two separate gates, not one gate that everything goes through. Eve said that many were redirected to the lower gate because they could not make the higher vibratory rate of the higher gate, although they had been promoted up. For these relatives, it was done to save their lives, not to mislead or punish them. It does mean that we do not have those family members, though, and they will no longer be a part of our family at the gathering. But they were saved rather than cast off, which would have been their fate otherwise, and for that we are grateful. They'll have a new family, a new body, and a new name. She said once, though, that in the end, we all meet back at the Tree of Life together again. So it appears that the error that caused the problems for the Tree of Life has been corrected. Those who have been pulled in death before us, and those who make it out now, any of these that are promoted forward will live and continue in the books of life, and then reunite at the tree at the end of all of that. We know that they removed from the Tree of Life itself all the main criminals and their associates. These groups will never bother any world anywhere again. They said we're all doing something new, something as incarnates that we've never seen before. Remember, they've tied each of our paths off at the eye to our faith. Whatever your faith is, stay true to that faith. It's the path that takes you to wherever your new home is. Although it's called the division of the families for a reason, don't discount people just because they said they're vaccinated. No matter what scare the movie here has going on, or what evil you become conscious of as more is revealed, be brave. When heaven removes the human population it can save up, this blurred reality will permanently end with the system shutdown, and you'll wake up back in the real worlds once again. Trust that heaven has aided every single being you love. Trust they hear you when you are asking for help. Understand the all listens. Fear is your greatest enemy. It's what the system pushes. The hits are because it's lashing out in death throes. Heaven won.
Remember us. As simple an order as a king can give. Remember why we died. That was his hope. Should any free soul come across that place. In all the countless centuries yet to be, may all our voices whisper to you from the ageless stones. Go tell the Spartans passerby that here, by Spartan law, we lie.
The word was spread that bold Leonidas and his 300, so far from home, laid down their lives, not just for Sparta, but for all Greece, and the promise this country holds. Now, here on this rugged patch of earth called Plataea, Xerxes' hordes face obliteration! Just there, the barbarians huddle. Sheer terror gripping tight. Their hearts with icy fingers, knowing full well what merciless horrors they suffered at the swords and spears of 300. Yet they stare now, across the plain, at 10,000 Spartans, commanding 30,000 free Greeks. Ho! The enemy outnumber us a paltry 3-1. Good odds for any Greek. This day, we rescue a world from mysticism and tyranny, and usher in a future brighter than anything we can imagine. Give thanks, man! To Leonidas and the brave 300! To victory!